should MJF beat Kenny Omega for the World Championship at Dynasty? Now, so Dynasty, it's in 2 weeks, next Sunday. So I actually do think that Kenny Omega should win. I did say this after Collision last Saturday that I think Kenny Omega should win versus MJF at Dynasty and then lose the rematch at Double or Nothing. And then the MJF can face Will Ospreay. I think that's where they're going because MJF actually has started that. He's started back that gimmick where he was the back when he was the international champion, which he then turned the championship into the American Championship. He kind of had a little throwback with his entrance today and his promo with Kenny Omega today. Very good promo on both ends. This was probably the best promo, I think, in my opinion, that Kenny Omega's ever cut in his career. And MJF, always pretty good promos. So definitely good back and forth. This video is about Kenny Omega and MJF, but actually before, it was supposed to start the show, but Chris Jericho actually interrupted and returned, which is actually interesting because he hadn't been on the show for about a year. But that's that. So yes, I do think that Kenny Omega should win versus MJF at Dynasty, and then MJF wins the rematch at Double or Nothing. But I think either way it's fine. If say MJF beats Kenny Omega, I don't think it really matters. But even either way, if Kenny Omega did face, let's say he beats MJF, and then instead of MJF getting a rematch at Double or Nothing, he enters the Owen Hart Tournament, and then let's say in the finals he faces off against Will Ospreay, and then let's say he loses, and then at All In it's Kenny Omega versus MJF. I think either way that would be pretty decent as long as it's, say they have a match and say Kenny Omega wins, and then they have a rematch at Double or Nothing. MJF wins it back and then faces Will Ospreay All In. Versus if say MJF loses and then he doesn't get a rematch at Double or Nothing, but instead enters the Owen Hart Tournament in the finals, which is actually odd. At Double or Nothing, it's the tournament finale is MJF versus Will Ospreay. I think that would be pretty nice. And let's say they could even also have, never mind, because MJF's probably not winning, and then having a rematch with Kenny Omega, it'll probably be him losing, and then Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay 3. Or a better option, secondary option, which I think is the best. You could have Kenny Omega win. You could have MJF win the match in Dynasty. Then you could have in the Owen Hart Tournament have Kenny Omega and MJF in the finals. What am I talking about? Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. So this is their third match. I think one set Forbidden Door, one set I think Wrestle Kingdom they faced off against each other, and then the Owen Hart finals would actually be pretty good because you get to have your Will Ospreay Kenny Omega match. And then you also get to have MJF main event with the title at All In against Will Ospreay. So it's pretty much everyone wins. Like people that wanted to see MJF, people that wanted to see Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega in another match, that would be interesting. Especially with World Championship stakes and high stakes in the match. So I think that's what they should do actually. If they don't want to have Kenny Omega win the title, I think they should have him lose, but then enter the Owen Hart Tournament and make it to the finals and face Will Ospreay in the finals. So that would definitely be nice. And in the semifinals, you would have Will Ospreay versus Swerve, and then in the other with the Kenny Omega semifinals match, you can have him face. I'm not sure. Maybe. Probably someone interesting, but yes. With that being said, I do think that. Personally, I would have Kenny Omega win at Dynasty and then lose it back at Double or Nothing. But if not, then I would have, so MJF win obviously at Dynasty, and then at Double or Nothing have the finals of the Owen Hart Tournament be Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. I think that would be nice. I think that'll be a solid matchup.